The Diary of a Certified Psychopath. Off the crank. Cumulus Kraken. The last Sunday of another old and blighted autumn, broadly bereft of the mellow mists and faded fruitfulness that ancient adages so faithfully pledge, and highlighted by a dawn of such cosmically dark characteristics that dense metal band Black Sabbath, if performing at one of our country's more edgy open-air rock festivals, would probably abandon their ear-splitting set a few encores early for fear of tempting terminally ill fate. After all, custom Fender guitars, megawatt Marshall amps, and multi-story speakers don't mix too well with steady drizzle. And adhering to the theme of maritime monstrosities, albeit of a less fishy and more feathered nature, not to mention more factually associated with the sky than a fictional sea creature could ever be, even within the fantastical realm of Greek myths and legends, the first noteworthy sight my wandering eyes beheld during this solitary voyage across British bitumen was a flock of juvenile herring gulls with wingspans wider than toy jumbo jets, circling like vultures above our vicinity's resident Warburton's lorry, that was stationed in the parking lot of Eastern Avenue's Tesco Express, where its driver was busy unloading a king's banquet of factory-baked provisions, regarded by their intended consumers as the best things before and since sliced bread. These peckish airborne babies bleated in anticipation, as they would to an adoptive parent that had just raided the town's food banks, seemingly poised to swoop down and peck apart the last unattended pallet stacked with super-thick cut white, half-brown wholemeal, soft-boiled bagels, seeded brioche buns, and at least one extra crusty Tiger Bloomer, along with enough Brexit-friendly crumpets to sink Belgium. Curiously, several unstructured kilometres of lamplit coast later, neither my head nor heart felt any more toasty, despite heavily padded chest armour and the obligatory deep winter beanie hat. Mixed and mashed my way past Southwick's menacing industrial estate, noting one raised drawbridge amidst its corrugated fortresses, whilst failing to outdrag the midnight milk train. Pivoted back to base via Portslade, Newtown, following a brief pit stop at the only 24-hour sustenance station west of Hove's eastern fringe that still welcomes customers seeking to top up something other than their dry tanks or drained batteries, with one in a variety of bottled beverages that would still permit them a safe and straight passage to the nearest bus stop. And one little hand's lap around an animated analog clock face later, it was the Feathered Philharmonic's chirpiest percussionists dominating the discordant denouement of Winter's maiden dawn cantata that accompanied my departure from Coach Sandman's recuperative realm, to one where the dreams he so carefully prescribes dissolve into daylight long before his subjects can instruct their restless subconscious to reach out and hit the pause button, then resume any worthwhile action after such piercing polyphonic perk-up calls have died down. On the tenuously related subject of ringtones, IBM and not Nokia or Motorola are officially acknowledged to have invented the world's first smartphone, which in America required a dedicated 20-amp AC outlet to recharge, if you were running any appliances that drew more than 1 kilowatt off the same circuit. After barely 2 miles spent spinning at an estimated fraction of that power, it was temporary ground traffic control that raised both my heart rate and core temperature, but only through anger at its continued obliviousness to pedal-powered commuters, since even without cleats, the challenge of smooth standing starts is rendered all the more tricky by screaming Lord South's blustery shots across the bows, that today evoked frenzied whistles from the forest of trembling masts anchored outside our hometown's principal yachting club, and would have blown any wave-worthy rider into a wild white horse's foaming jaws, long before they could leap aboard and surf its flowing main to stony land. Hence, my tentative cruise east along Sussex's breeze-battered coastal carriageway was abandoned at Kingston Lane, where I bailed off its choppy tarmac and coiled cautiously around Southwick's idyllic village green, whose mightiest oaks were rocked to their sturdy roots by venomous upper gusts, apt to flatten Jake Paul before the opening bell of his pending pay-per-punch exhibition bout. After narrowly surviving several double-parked pinch points, and being carried further inland by strong aerial currents, I improvised a twisty suburban traverse home, incorporating Dowland Avenue and Crown Road, where there was a chance to draw breath, then regard a few more radiant tributes to the season of farewell, fine fortune, sumptuous celebrations, and any wreaths of flourishing holly not swept away by gale-force storms, before a solitary robin could savour their succulent ruby fruits.